Hi there, this is Cheryl Arts from Willow Roots. Thank you for joining me. And today I'm going to talk about my journey into spirituality because each and every one of us has a different story. And it's very rare that I find someone who kind of came into this world as a child and knew and stayed within that spiritual realm since they were a baby. There's a lot of us that came in that were really connected to the spiritual world when we were little, and kind of the world showed us that it wasn't safe or that we weren't believed or different things. So we kind of shut that off. We shut off our intuition, or we didn't share what we were experiencing. And either now, as they are coming into their adulthood, that it's safer to explore this area and to share, or someone like me who I believe was really intuitive as a child, but didn't really know if I was connected in that spiritual way. But really, I had my awakening when I turned 40 years old. So really, interesting space. So we all come into it very differently. So I want to share my story into it, but also share just some pieces around frustration for those who aren't awake. That, if you are awake and you are, have people, friends, family, community members, neighbors that don't really understand or see. We're just going to talk about that a little bit just to help you in that space if that feels right. So thank you again for joining me. And so interesting title on this video, Shots from a Tibetan Singing Bowl. And so I'm going to share how that kind of applied into my spiritual awakening. And so one of the things when I want to say too, when we're talking about spiritual awakening, is that, and this goes for every single thing in life, there is no forcing. There's really no forcing anyone into anything. And so if you're one of those people at the moment that would love for someone in your life to awaken up into, this world and their spirituality and these connections, it can't just happen. They're on their own timeline. They chose when they were going to wake up, and so all you can do is offer information if they're open to it, or offer to come with me to this crystal bowl session or whatever it may be. But it needs to be soft and gentle. And I know for myself, when I'm told what to do, you should do, I don't like it. I almost, don't shit on me, and I likely won't do it. So, if you're like, hey, just something to look into, for sure. But, I don't like being told what to do. And most people don't. Like many, many, many people don't. Toddlers don't even like to be told what to do. One of the first words they learn is no. So it needs to be very soft and gentle. And one of the things I really love, I follow this beautiful human, Karen, on Instagram and Facebook, and she was saying that, awakening, a spiritual awakening should be like waking up to a nice cup of coffee. Like you are in bed, you're sleeping, and you can smell the coffee brewing, or maybe it's tea, or maybe a little bacon sizzling, or something like that that you connect with, but that you're not forced out of bed. You just gently get up, and then you can just enjoy that cup of coffee quietly. And that's the awakening process, hopefully. And so mine was gentle but not gentle, and I'll share that with you. So for my story starts back in September of 2015, where I got invited to an evening at a friend's house, a gathering of women, and I had my husband drop me off because I was going to have a few drinks, and I said, "Yeah, I'll be, maybe a couple hours. Pick me up by 10 and we'll be good." And little did I know that I would have an amazing time. I would connect with all of these incredible women, lots of laughter. We played Cards Against Humanity, had shared lots of drinks and food and different things like that. And before I knew it, it was 2:30 in the morning. So I'm trying to text my husband to pick me up and then offer other people rides home. And so it was a really great evening. And in amongst that evening, the woman who hosted had received a Tibetan singing bowl So she wasn't spiritual either, received this Tibetan singing bowl for an anniversary gift. And so mind you, for me at this point, I was not spiritual. I was really healthy. I looked after myself, minus maybe the alcohol, good nutrition, exercised, so the physical piece I was looking after, but spirituality was not my thing. So this Tibetan singing bowl, I didn't really know the importance of it. I didn't realize it was sacred. And so some of you may cringe when I tell you this story, but I'm just giving you some perspective of where I was at. And so, 1 o'clock in the morning, decisions aren't that great at that point. And so she brings out the bowl and like, what can we do with this? And I was like, shots. And so we poured alcohol into this bowl and we all had drinks. And, she woke up in the morning and the floor was all sticky, probably because of that. And so we had a really incredible time, but little did I know. So that's kind of just giving you a perspective of kind of where I started. And at the time I was working in foreign defense industry too. I was working at a company that was selling armed vehicles to many different countries. And I know that didn't sit right with me, but this is where I was. So just to kind of give you, kind of black and white of where I've come from. And so about 6 weeks after that gathering, that party, and I hit my head on the ice playing ringette. And so that was my concussion journey. So that would kind of be the hard awakening piece. And I'm so grateful that that happened. I wasn't grateful at the time, but I'll talk about that in another video. But with that head injury, it took me into a very deep, dark place, and kind of like the video I just did before, that dark night of the soul, we talked about that. And so one of the women that was part of that fun evening that my husband drove that home that night messaged me about 6 months into my concussion. So this is about April 2016, and said, hey, do you want to go to a crystal bowl healing? And before I could even think about it, I messaged yes. And then I was like, what is a crystal bowl healing? Like, I had no idea. And I just want to pause there and talk about that for a second, because when we have that immediate instinct that we're saying yes to something that we don't even know, and that's where magic happens. There's a lot of magic that happens. And for me, that was a turning point. That was really a very pivotal moment, me saying yes. So I think spirit was at work. It was like, it was like auto writing, like it was automatic. And so as I was coming up to that event, I was driving there. I was like, what am I even going to? I had no clue. Like I had no expectations, but I had a little bit of anxiety because I didn't know, what I was getting myself into. And so it was a really beautiful spot. It's from my teacher now, Nick Balog. She had this beautiful, beautiful healing space not far from me. And it's all comfortably laid out. And, she started to talk about the sacredness of the bowls. Now, mind you, she was using crystal bowls. I don't know if she mentioned Tibetan singing bowls. So me and my friend, who had done these shots from the Tibetan singing bowl just 6 months before, so she talks about the sacredness, and we kind of look at each other and go, oh my God, like, and, immediately our mind goes to the desecration of a sacred object. And so we were stifling some laughter and trying to keep it down because, people are in, serious mode. But so that was a really interesting connection that, that brought us there. And it was really funny. And so when I was in that space at the crystal bowl healing, again, no expectations. She went through each of the chakras, which is really beautiful. And the first chakra we got to, I remember a woman across the way, across the room, just started crying and bawling. And so she was like deeply releasing. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, get yourself together, woman. Like, are you okay? Like, what is going on? Meanwhile, she was having this beautiful healing. And so for me, that skepticism of these connections and vibrations and, step into the spiritual realm and in holistic healing. And so, me being all critical. And then, she worked her way up through the chakras. She got to the heart chakra. And that's when I lost it. And I was like, no, 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 no. And my mouth was quivering, and I was about to like just let out like a wail of a cry. And so I was able to stifle it down in, but, release some tears. And so without believing in it was receiving. And so for some of us in the spiritual realm, sometimes we have to feel it, see it, know it to believe it. And so that was kind of my like first kind of initiation into this arena of holistic healing and spirituality. And and I knew there was an effect that evening had on me in many different ways. And so I started to look up what else Nick offered. And she had healing circles and she taught healing and had some different workshops and different things like that. And so I decided to go to a healing circle. And so at the time, it was a gathering of anyone who would like to offer healing or needed healing. So it was a really incredible space. And so I went there and I, shared my story about being in the concussive state and having all these symptoms. And so I had this beautiful woman, Carol, working on me. And so, and then by the end, I actually had Nick and another woman. So I had three people working on me at the same time. And in my mind, again, still disbelieving. So, I was really struggling, even though I went to these places. I was struggling with the belief. And so the whole time while I'm having the healing session, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is doing nothing. I don't feel anything, blah, blah, blah. The ego working overtime in this space. And it was about a couple of weeks later, and all healing sessions take some time to process and integrate. That, sometimes miracles happen instantly, and I've seen them and I've witnessed them. But a lot of times, it takes a little bit to fully process the healing to receive. And so it was about 2 weeks after that healing, at that healing circle, that I was like, wow, I feel better. And for me, it was very noticeable. I had a hard time with lights. So even you see the lights in the room behind me or the windows, that would drive me crazy. I would have to curtain everything, make my room as dark as possible, my whole house as dark as possible, wear sunglasses even inside. And at that point, I was like, the sun doesn't bother me, that the light does not bother me as much anymore. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And the only thing I could contribute to it was the healing circle. I mean, I was doing many different things, many different modalities, trying to heal my concussion. But this one really hit a spot. And so from there, I just kind of started to explore it more, had an individual healing session, which was mind blowing, which I'll share some point. I got into past lives and really amazing things. And so for me, my curiosity just really opened and I became insatiable for information in this arena. Information about holistic healing, information about spirituality, about the Egyptian pantheon, about angels and guides and past lives. Like, there's so much there. And so I just started to really open myself up to it. And so I'll share more of my stories as I do these videos. But one of the things I'll share with you is that in this arena of spirituality, there is a lot. There's oracle cards, there's numerology, there's astrology, there's healing, there's, not, dot, dot, dot. There is incredible things and everything is incredible. But not everything is for you. And so use your discernment. If you're new to this community and you're new to this, awakening, use your discernment. So discernment means like really sit with it and feel what's right for you because you can take in too much and get a little overwhelmed. And so just, stick to, what feels right for you, the books that feel right for you, the videos and the podcasts and the people and the events and the workshops and the teachings. So trust what you're guided to because like for me, I've dabbled in a little bit of different things, but I've had to sit with and go, okay, I know about it. I know enough to get me by in a conversation and maybe offer a little bit of it, but am I meant to dive deep in it? And so I trust in that guidance, that inner knowing, that gut feel, where I'm supposed to go. So just, if you're new to this, please use that discernment because, it can get overwhelming and there's a lot of different things. But again, trust your intuition on that. And, just, talking again about not forcing anyone, into this space because I know it's frustrating. So, I mean, we can feel like a lone wolf here. We can, feel like, really all alone and, wanting other people to see because I think one of the magic pieces of this is that it shows you a whole new perspective of life and how things could be, how we can heal ourselves. That knowledge and that information that's innate within each and every one of us is very, very powerful. And I think when you know about this, we want to share it. Excuse me. So I know for me, understanding perspectives of life and death from the point of view of being a soul in a human body changes your perspective about everything. And so I want to share that more with people, but people are just not open to it. So you have to wait until people are open. You wait until they've had their warm cup of coffee. You can plant seeds, you can make offerings, you can invite people to crystal bowl healings. If that feels right for you. But, you have to respect their timelines. So just a few pieces there about my journey. Hopefully your journey is gentler. Maybe you'll have some funny stories like I do. Love to hear them in comments. So thank you very much. Till next time.